Taiwan Semiconductor stock, TSM is the ticker symbol. Is Taiwan Semiconductor stock a good buy? I wanted to break down the most recent financial data. The whole sector is really lighting up the board. Some of these stocks are significantly undervalued and have a lot of growth. Let's jump in. We'll break down Taiwan Semiconductor stock, TSM. Let's jump in. If you're just joining me for the first time, thanks so much for stopping by. Make sure to hit the like and follow button. I'm an economist. I break down the big picture of the economy and I show how that applies to the stock market. Then I apply value investing principles to each individual stock that I look at. Taiwan Semiconductor stock, TSM, you're looking at the 4-hour bar chart, lit up the board on the most recent earnings. I want to break those down. But there's also SMCI stock is really lighting up the board as well. So the whole sector is really taking off. Let's jump into Taiwan Semiconductor stock and their financials. Q4, 19.64. Advising, here's the Taiwan Semiconductor projected revenue. I had to push this up a little bit. Analysts, based on what information we're given, are pushing their estimates up forward for 2024 and 2025. Slight increases here, but margins were also improving for the biggest manufacturer for semiconductors. How that plays out, let's go through the margins. Gross margins 53% for the latest quarter. Operating margins 41.6%. Net margins 38.1%. So from that perspective, this is a company that performs very highly. Earnings per share, $1.45 for the quarter in 2023, but it's the future earnings per share that I really wanted to break down. $7.47 all the way out into 2025, $6.07 for 2024. How does that play out for an investment? Let's break this down. The U.S. Treasury yield right now about 4.1%. It's been popping up and down, and I actually expect that this will pop a little bit higher. Taiwan Semiconductor stock may drop a little bit. We've got some economic data hitting this week. GDP is going to show up, and GDP could easily be sizzling hot. Same time, PCE, economic indicator. The PCE index is the inflation for personal consumptions. And if this one is slightly elevated or doesn't fall fast enough, just like CPI did, this one could simultaneously rock the stock market, broadly speaking. The Federal Reserve may have to keep interest rates a little bit higher, maybe even bump them up a quarter or so. That would probably make the stock market hiccup. Taiwan Semiconductor stock may hiccup a little bit as well. But let's keep looking at some of these numbers. With the U.S. 10-year at 4.1, if it pushes to 4.25 as your benchmark investment rate, SPY index, I took all 500 stocks and asked the question the next 4 quarters out. What is the yield? It's just slightly below 5.0% right now. SOXX stock, 3.621%. I just did a video on SOXX stock. But Taiwan Semiconductor, you're looking at the 607 earnings per share projection for 2024. Current price, 114. Overall yield, 5.31%, giving today's price. With the future 4 quarters going out, that investment beats the S&P 500 and the U.S. Treasury yield. But I wouldn't necessarily jump in and buy at this price. Now, I'm not a technician, but this stock really lit up. I would be looking for some kind of move lower in Taiwan Semiconductor stock before I hit the buy button. Price to earnings ratio. Here's something that's kind of slightly problematic in my book. This is a company that if you looked at those margins consistently performs. And although TSM stock is a little elevated, the price to earnings ratio is sub what the broader stock market is usually trading at. Typically, it's trading 25 to 30, the broader stock market. So the semiconductor, despite those higher margins, which are higher than the broader stock market, TSM stock actually underperforms when it comes to price to earnings ratio. That does not necessarily mean that it's going to meet up to that, but I was a little surprised and have been surprised at these numbers when I keep looking at it saying, wow, the ratio is just a little bit low. Let's take a look. Here's Taiwan Semiconductor stock, TSM, versus QQQ stock versus SOXX stock. And QQQ stock, of course, is the NASDAQ. SOXX stock is the semiconductor, one of the semiconductor ETFs. And as you can see, Taiwan Semiconductor underperforms SOXX stock and QQQ stock, but not always. There are times when it will meet up with those stocks. Now, it may be that QQQ stock is overvalued, which it is, relative to other investments. Same with SOXX stock. So, although Taiwan Semiconductor stock has popped up a little bit on some other news from other stocks and future projections for this company itself, those other indexes, QQQ, SOXX stock, are overvalued. So I would expect that those stocks would probably move down slightly more so than necessarily Taiwan Semiconductor moving upward. But again, it goes back to that price to earnings ratio, which is a bit low, especially when you compare everything else. In the meantime, here's Super Microcomputer SMCI stock. This one really lit up the board with their latest financial earnings. And if you go all the way back to 2020, you can see what a huge move this is and how this is really pushing the semiconductor industry. The whole industry is really kind of lighting up right now. Make sure to hit that like and follow button. I like Taiwan Semiconductor stock a lot, but I would probably buy any dips. I wouldn't necessarily buy into the price right now. I think those broader indexes, QQQ stock, is probably going to fall a little bit simply because I think this economy is too hot and we're going to see some numbers, and that's probably going to pressure bond yields. Stocks will sell off. That might be an opportunity to jump into Taiwan Semiconductor stock. Hit that like and follow button. See you in the next video.